Hello, my name is Reverend Rachel Hazel, and I will be reading from A Course in Miracles, the complete and annotated edition, Cameo Essay number 2. My strength will support you. On the morning of October 21st, 1965, near the very beginning of the dictation of the miracle principles, right after Principle 3, Helen had a revealing exchange with Jesus, one that tells us a great deal about him as a teacher. Jesus says, "You are breaking communication by thinking it's cute. This is not wrong, but it diverts your attention. Breaking is either a misspelling or a pun." Jesus is surprisingly agreeable about Helen's thought that it's cute. The problem with that thought is not that it's false, nor that it's bad. The problem is simply that it diverts her attention away from what he is saying. Helen has something to learn from him. It's vital, therefore, that she pay attention. Helen says, "That's true." And then Jesus says, "Of course it's true. And I'm really glad you got the idea. I am not angry when this kind of thing happens, but the lesson deteriorates under lack of focus." Please read these 3 points with corollaries as often as you can today, because there may be a quiz this evening. This is merely to introduce structure if it is needed. It is not to frighten you. There is not a trace of sternness or judgment here. Jesus is not angry when Helen's attention is diverted, and he freely expresses his happiness when she gets what he's trying to say. He is entirely on her side. He just wants her to learn, period. It's not about appeasing him. It's about her own learning. For this reason, he urges her to read and reread the first 3 principles throughout the day, because there might be a quiz that evening, although there's no evidence of such a quiz actually happening. He reassures her that this is not meant to frighten her into submission. It's just meant as a useful structure that will help her learn. Helen says, "Well, would you regard this as a kind of miracle, maybe?" Jesus says, "You better reread them now. There is nothing special or surprising about this at all. The one thing that happened was the universal miracle, which was the experiences of intense love you have felt. Don't get embarrassed." The urtext asks, "by the idea of love." Don't get embarrassed by the idea of love. Things that are true are not embarrassing. Embarrassment is only a form of fear, and actually a particularly dangerous form because it reflects egocentricity. No, don't think of how Bill will find this fascinating either. I told you to reread them, and you did not. Helen says, "I am now." Helen's attention has been diverted again. Ignoring the instructions to reread the first 3 principles, she asks if communicating with him could be considered a miracle. This is an understandable reaction. She is, after all, that's my cat's, having a conversation with a voice that claims to be Jesus. He finds a way to answer her question while at the same time drawing her back to his focus. He says, in effect, if you reread the first 3 principles, you'll see that the ability to communicate with me is not a miracle. That a miracle is an expression of love. Therefore, your experiences of intense love were experiences of the universal miracle. This probably refers to the preceding summer in which Helen had had a number of experiences of being in a crowd and feeling a brief but powerful affinity with everyone there. Of one such experience, she said that a sudden sense of deep emotional closeness to everyone there swept over me. At the moment of these experiences, Helen became embarrassed by the love she felt, a theme that will crop up repeatedly in the early dictation. This represents yet another diversion. Helen is pulling away from his teaching into self-concern, rather than offering reassuring sympathy. Therefore, Jesus quickly pops the bubble of her embarrassment. It is not humility, he says, but rather dangerous egocentricity. Then he pulls away yet again, musing to herself. Then she pulls away yet again, musing to herself about whether Bill will find this fascinating. Jesus again brings her back to the task at hand. I told you to reread them, the principles, and you did not. And finally she yields, I am now. This seems to set the stage for the touching communication that follows. Jesus says, do not feel guilty about the fact that you are doubting this. Jesus reread them, and their truth will come to you. I love you, and I am not afraid or embarrassed or doubtful. My strength will support you, so don't worry and leave the rest to me. Jesus now addresses what probably lurks in the background behind all her diversions. Helen is feeling guilty about doubting his teaching. As a solution, he again brings her back to what he has asked her to do 3 times already. Reread them. If she just does that, the truth of the principles will come to her and her doubts will be vanquished. Helen's guilt over her own doubt seems to be part of a larger feeling of inadequacy as a learner. For that is what Jesus speaks to next. Her fear, embarrassment, and doubt all erect barriers to her learning. As long as those feelings are there, how can she really learn what he's teaching? She can, implies Jesus, because he is there. And he not only loves her, as he openly tells her, but he is also free of all the barriers that hold her back. I am not afraid or embarrassed or doubtful. Therefore, she can just relax and learn his strength. Do not run to Bill to tell him. There will be time, but don't disrupt things. I'll arrange the schedule. You have a lot to do today. Get dressed or you will be late. But when you do see Bill, be sure you tell him how much he helped you through by giving you the right message. And don't bother with worrying about how you received it. That doesn't matter either. You were just afraid. Here is yet another diversion. Helen wants to run off and tell Bill what has happened. But rather than Jesus urging her yet again to reread the principles, time has moved on, and the priority is now for her to get dressed and get to work. We might expect him to urge her to stay with the momentous happening, talking to Jesus, and get back to work late. Instead, however, he shows that he is concerned with the rest of Helen's life. As important as their communication is, he doesn't want it to get in the way of her other responsibilities. He even offers to arrange the schedule for her. Then he shows his concern for Bill. Helen later wrote in her autobiography that when Jesus first began dictating the course to her, she called Bill in a panic, saying that the voice she has been hearing was now using very specific words and seems to want to go on for some time. Bill made a simple and very practical suggestion. Try and write something more and see what happens. Jesus' comment above seems to be a reference to the phone call. If so, then Helen apparently didn't receive that suggestion very gracefully at the time. And Jesus wants Bill to know how apt it was, and he wants Helen to not feel guilty for responding ungracefully. That doesn't matter either. You were just afraid. Here at the very beginning of the course, we have a revealing glimpse of how Jesus, the teacher, relates to his students. Helen, as we have seen, gets caught up in various diversions. This is cute. Is this a miracle? I feel embarrassed. I wonder what Bill will think. I've got to run and tell Bill. Many of these diversions, it seems, come down to one thing: an understandable fascination with the idea of Jesus Christ dictating A Course in Miracles to her. It's like a celebrity showing up at your class who has an important message to deliver, but all you can think about is the fact that a celebrity is standing right there in front of you. In the midst of Helen's very human reactions, Jesus holds fast to his single agenda to get across his teaching. He is as focused as she is distracted. Therefore, no matter in what direction she pulls away, he keeps pulling her back to the principles he has just dictated to her, telling her again and again to reread them. He even asks her to do so throughout the day, because there might be a quiz. He doesn't ignore her question or her He doesn't ignore her questions or her doubts. Rather, he tells her that she'll find the answers in the very principle he is asking her to study. Even though he steps far from his agenda, he makes it abundantly clear that this has nothing to do with her doing what the authority says in order to be good or in order not to be bad. This is only about her learning. Thus, no matter what she says, he does not get angry with her, and rather than introducing fear or guilt in her to spur her into doing his bidding, he actively tries to relieve those feelings. When he needs to correct her, he follows this with reassurance. This is not wrong. I am not angry. And when she does receive his teaching, he is quick to tell her how glad he is. He wants nothing, not her distractions, not her embarrassment or doubt or guilt, and not any needs she imagines he has to get in the way of her learning. He is there purely for her. His whole demeanor reinforces this impression. He is present, engaged, and clearly concerned. He tells her how he feels about her reactions. I'm really glad you get the idea. And he tells her how he feels about her. I love you. And he explains himself. He does not leave her in a state of mystery, having to trust in his almightiness, but rather tells her plainly why he says what he does. The lesson deteriorates under lack of focus. This is merely to introduce structure if it is needed. He even offers to make up for any lacks she may have as a learner, as he explains toward the end, he is free of all these lacks. Thus, no matter how inadequate she may feel, he can rest on his love and strength, let go of her worry, and leave the rest to me. This snapshot of Jesus, this snapshot of Jesus' will to teach, meeting Helen's desire to pull away, surely applies to more people than just her. What student of the course does not get drawn off in diversions and distractions? And when that happens to us, we can envision that the same teacher that was there with Helen is here with us, single-mindedly, yet patiently and lovingly, drawing us back to his teaching. Thank you for joining me today. Have a wonderful day.